Welcome to this week's session of Fridays on the Farm. Today we're going to go into more detail on our cattle working facilities and talk a little bit about squeeze chutes and headgates. Squeeze chutes and headgates are a really important part of our working facilities because this not only keeps our producers safe, but it also helps keep our cattle safe. If we can have better control, it keeps everybody calmer, it makes everything work smoother, and that's a win for everybody. One thing that's important to remember when we look at these is you can have something that's really simple, or you can have something that has every bell and whistle out there. There's no right way to do anything. You've got to find what works for your operation, what makes it where you can safely control your cattle and do what you need to do. So we're going to start with this. This is a squeeze chute by Arrowquip and go through what some of those bells and whistles options may be that can come on some of these squeeze chutes. There are a few key differences in how our actual head gates normally open and close. One way is not necessarily better than others. It just comes down to personal preference. This one is what we call a scissor, which means it directly opens and directly shuts. And we'll look at a couple others that are more of what they call a self-catch. And sometimes even your scissor ones have a self-catch feature. But this is just that scissor open and close. One thing that is nice about this one is the bar that the handle's on allows it to slide. So if you're short-handed when you're working cattle, one person can operate the tailgate and the head gate at the same time and have better control rather than running back and forth each direction. Arrowquip also likes to do a couple other things. This is one of those other fancier bells and whistles. Not everybody has one of these, but if you need one, it definitely comes in handy. This is a stabilizer, so when that cow's head is in the gate, we can squeeze this down to keep them still. If you're going to be doing things like jugular blood draws or dehorning or things like that, if you've got calves that you're putting implants in, this could be a really handy tool to have on your head gate. So obviously this is a brand new squeeze chute. He hasn't even got it in place yet, but we're going to get a chance to kind of go through some of those options that come on these squeeze chutes. So we're going to start at the back and just work our way forward. There's different types of tailgates out there that can be on squeeze chutes. This is a slide gate, so it's got a pole on this side. You can push it open, that cow's going to come through, and we can pull it back closed. That's really handy. This way, once our cow's caught, when we're working her, when we turn loose out of the head gate, she can't go backwards. This also keeps other cows from coming forward and crowding her. This also comes equipped with a pole. The way these bars right here, the pole comes in so that as that cow moves forward, you can easily slide this up to keep her close to the front of the head gate. This is a really nice feature, especially when we're doing things like dehorning, so that it keeps them towards the front. Another thing that's nice about these squeeze chutes, it has the same thing on the bottom level. This way, if we're doing things like calves, it accommodates that shorter cow. This also really comes in handy if we need to palpate as well. Another feature that's nice is you've got these different gates that allow you access to that cow. So for instance, if we needed a tail bleed, this is an easy place we can get into that tail when she's caught and not risk putting ourselves in a bad spot. This front one opens as well. It's got that safety catch, so then if you're in a hurry, once it's broken a little bit, lots of times they slam closed pretty well on their own. If for some reason what you need to do that doesn't give you enough access, you've also got an option here, once you pull all the safeties, where you can open this whole door up to get access to that cow if you need to do something. Some producers sometimes get in a bind and sometimes you need to milk a cow or force her to be willing to take that calf, or you need access to their feet for whatever reason. This bottom gate allows you to do that. And so this squeeze chute is nice because it has those options to give us some of those access points that we might need. The next thing we're going to look at is right here. There's a safety at the top and this bar pops out. This window is a really nice place for us to give shots and vaccines and have access to the pointed neck that we talked about last week. If you think about it, when you saw that video, obviously that facility is one that's a different kind of setup, and it was hard to find a good angle to get access to that neck. This makes it where it's a safe place for you to do it. One thing I really like about it is by having this open of a space, even if you're giving a shot and she does something like sits back, you've got plenty of room to get your arm out without you risking getting hurt at the same time. There's also the squeeze part of it, which is normally going to be your biggest bar. And you've got different squeeze points depending on how small you want that to get. If we're working calves, or especially if we're doing something like castrating, we want to be able to squeeze that chute down to have that kind of access point we need. You can see on this side of the squeeze chute, you've still got all the same options you had on the other side. If you want to pull the tailgate, there's a bar on this side you can pull. You've got access to all those same doors and all those same pivot points on this side as well, depending on how you want to work your cattle, or even if you've got multiple people helping. This is another example of a type of squeeze chute. You can tell this is a little bit older model. It's been used a little bit more, but it still does everything we need it to do. This is a little bit different type of head gate. The way this one catches, there's a lever right here that allows it to move forward or backwards depending on what we're wanting to do. So when that calf comes up, ideally as it comes through, the calf pushes and it self catches. This can be easier if you don't have as much help when you're trying to work cows. If you've got calves that might be a little bit faster, this kind of makes it easier for you to catch them, so they're less likely to slip by you. When it comes time to let those calves out, ideally there won't be pressure on it, and let those calves come out straight. Sometimes they've got a little too much pressure on it, so you've got to let those calves back up before you can move it and let it come all the way out. This lever is used to release the side gate, so if you ever get in a bind with something, almost every squeeze chute has a lever that's similar to this, but you can pop it, the far gate will swing open, and you can let that cow out a side gate if you had to. It has a squeeze, so we can get it as tight as we need to get it to do whatever we need to do. When it comes time to unsqueeze that calf, there's a lever right here that holds that squeeze in place, so we're going to release it and unroll it to unsqueeze that calf. This also has a little bit different of a tailgate than the last squeeze chute we saw. This tailgate operates on a rope, so you can let it down behind the cow. This way, when you do have to back her up a little bit, she can't get back out. It lets you catch them a little bit faster and keeps the next cow from coming up behind her. When you get ready for the next one, you just pull it back up. And as you pull, there's a safety pin that catches. That way it'll hold it up, so that way you're not having to hold the weight of that tailgate the whole time. It can function just as well as the last one we looked at. It's just a little bit of a different style. On the last squeeze chute we looked at, it had some doors that opened up. This one has the same features, they just look a little bit differently. The sides come down so you can still give your shots and have access where you need to. When it comes time to close it, you just push it back up and it catches. One thing is always keep an eye on your squeeze bar. You notice then it moved a little bit. That's one of those good things that can catch you off guard, so make sure you're aware of what you've got around you. So when you've got a cow in here, it's important that we go ahead and squeeze that down so that calf's caught where we need her to be. Another thing they've got, you notice the last squeeze chute had a pipe that was built in. You can do that with anything you've got laying around. They've got a pipe they used to slide behind wherever they need it. So don't be afraid to find something that works for you. This squeeze chute also has the option to let down this side, so if you had to get a calf in to nurse or get to the underside of a cow, you have that access as well. Another important feature to notice at this facility is as we get to the squeeze chute, there's solid walls. This will make it a little bit easier to keep those cattle moving in the right direction so that they don't see other exit points besides the direction we want them to go. He's got a curved catch point before he gets into that last sweep, and these are all really important factors to consider as you're putting together your working facilities. This is another example. This is just a head gate, so this gets welded on or chained to whatever your already current working facility is. So obviously it doesn't have some of the squeeze features that our squeeze chutes do, but it still allows you to get a head catch, which allows you to do a lot of the things we need to do. So for this one, it's a scissor opening. You release this tension to pull it up to allow the cow to come in. As soon as your cow comes in, you close it on her and you've got her caught. That way you can do what you need to do. When you get done, you just push down and release her, just like we did before we caught her. And that way you still have an option to catch your cows and get some things done that you need to. Something else handy that might be good for your operation could be a palpation cage. Like we talked about with squeeze chutes, they can have all the bells and whistles that you want or be as simple as you want. Depending on what the goals are for your operation and where your budgets are, or where some of these other options come in. With things like a palpation cage, if you plan on palpating, whether that's for pregnancy testing, AI, embryo transfer work, anything like that, this can be a really handy tool to help get you in a safer location. Those gates open both directions normally, so you can even close it in front of the cow that's behind you, makes it a safe place for you to get in and out. Again, depending on what your goals, you may want to think about a scale cage. Some people have this as the last place they are before they walk into the squeeze chute or behind that palpation cage. That way you can get weights on the next calf that's coming in. This is just one of those things to track for your records. It can be really handy. And again, it just depends on if it's within your price point and in your budget. Depending on what you're wanting to do, you may also consider a calf chute or a tilt table. If you've commonly got problems with feet, tilt tables can be really handy so that you can get that cow up and work on feet and trim them where you need to. There are some folks who travel and do this. Right now in Arkansas, I know there's not very many. So this could be one of those things that could be a good investment for your operation, depending on what you're having problems with. On the calf side, if you're doing a lot of preconditioning, this can make it handier to do things like castrations because you can actually tilt that calf up and get a better angle. And it's important when you're looking at squeeze chutes and head gates, you find one that's in your budget, but you also find one that's functional for your operation. Everybody has their own preferences. There's not one that's 100% better than the other. You just have to decide the kind that you like and the kind that works for you. For more information, you can check out our MP, that's Cattle Working Facilities. We've also got a really good website to go through and look at some of those options. And if you've got questions, don't ever hesitate to give us a call. Thank you for joining us for this week's session of Fridays on the Farm. I hope you've got some better ideas of different options that may work for your operation. If you've got questions, don't ever hesitate to give us a call. I'd be happy to come out and help you. Next week, we're going to start talking a little bit more about actually handling cattle and using these facilities. We'll see you next Friday.